Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Legacy Network. I am Joshua Reynolds. I'm the host of Meet the Producers, and today we have with us Jeff Watkins. Hey, Jeff, how you doing tonight?
Joshua, I'm outstanding. I'm blessed and really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm going to read a little bit about you, um, and then we're going to get into talking about some of the work you do with American Legacy Network, as well as
Sure.
your work as a filmmaker in general. So, everyone, I'm going to read his bio real quick so you get a chance to know who Mr. Jeff Watkins is, this wonderful gentleman sitting with me this evening. A native of Mount Vernon, New York, and an Annapolis graduate of the United States Naval Academy, Jeff Watkins' path into media production has been dynamic. Named as one of Merrill Lynch's most promising young talents by Research Magazine in 2009, Watkins served as the brand's advisor to some of the most talented athletes and entertainment artists throughout the country. Through his continuous involvement and crossover in both the finance and entertainment industries, Watkins quickly found and marred his passions. Watkins founded Condriel, a global transmedia production and distribution company based in New York City. As chief executive officer, Watkins handles all aspects of development, financing, and distribution of the company's projects and oversees company operations. 2019 marked the 10th year of operation for the company that has produced content for recognized brands and global media partners such as Fox, Universal, One Race Films, AOL, CBS, and American Legacy Network. In 2011, he created, developed, and executive produced the series My Hero with production partner and star actress Zoe Saldana, which featured celebrities such as Idris Elba, Nick Cannon, Gina Rodriguez, Adam Tyler, and many others. The show was later sold to AOL for one of the biggest web series buys in history at the time and headlined on the AOL On digital entertainment lineup. In 2013, he led his company to the Dominican Republic to develop and produce Isolated Victim, an action thriller feature film based on true events of child organ trafficking after the Haiti earthquake of 2010 that aims to deliver rich multicultural content to the mainstream market. Watkins then commenced production and direction of Four Square Miles to Glory, a feature basketball documentary which includes a roster of notable NBA greats, ESPN and Fox Sports on air talents, and entertainment personalities. In 2018, Watkins then directed The Blackout Game, a short documentary in partnership with Toyota and American Legacy Network, in a series of videos leading multinational educational activism campaign across South America. In 2019, he began production of Hallowed Grounds, a six-part documentary series across America in which tell the stories of unique Black communities, overachieving excellence, and youth mentorship. As you hear, everyone, Mr. Jeff Watkins is an accomplished filmmaker and producer. In addition, on American Legacy Network, he has produced the Say It Loud episodes as well as the CIAA Black History News briefs. And so, Jeff Watkins, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And everyone, we're going to ask you if you have questions, rather, everyone, please put them in the comment section of our Facebook feed. I will be monitoring it, so you will be able to ask questions, and I can relay those to Mr. Watkins as well. So, Jeff, how are you doing this evening?
I'm outstanding, man. I'm blessed. I've had a long-term partnership with American Legacy. I've invested and sacrificed in Rodney Reynolds, the founder and CEO, is a mentor to me, and someone that I hold in high regard throughout my life and before we even started working together. And knowing about you, um, it's great, to see the transition and to see you guys be involved, yourself and Joshua. So it's awesome.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. How did you become a filmmaker? How did you get into filmmaking?
Yes. I mean, it's kind of dynamic. At the end of the day, really, the thing I could really attribute it to is just like I tell a lot of kids that I mentor. just move on your curiosity, move on your passion. This is my third career. My first career, I was officer in the Navy. I mean, I was in engineering department, in charge of search and rescue operations and in charge of battle damage control and assessment. Then I go into Wall Street and I'm a wealth advisor for a lot of high net worth individuals. And now I'm a filmmaker. And even that path to being a filmmaker was one that had many sub-steps, many challenges, many hurdles, many risks, in between that. So it's really just continuing to follow the passion and follow what you feel inside and not deny it. And even though, my path when I was in Merrill Lynch or any particular path, even my path in the military, I had friends of mine that are now executive officers and commanding officers of ships, and I could have been that, on Wall Street. I had a mentor who's very successful there, and seeing some of even my other friends there, making a lot of money there. I could have continued and stayed in that as well, but it's really just continuous. It's really following that passion and having the faith to believe in the deliverance and the fulfillment that will bring.
So you mentioned that you actually had two careers before becoming a filmmaker. You were in the Navy as well as in finance. So did your experience in those two worlds, do they currently inform your filmmaking and how you approach your craft?
I think everything in life informs everything in your previous experience informs everything that you're doing right now in the present. There's something that I draw from. I just had a big event with the Curly Girl Collective. I produced their live virtual event, Curl Fest Beauty Summit, 2 weeks ago, and that was a 6.5-hour live event in which took a lot of time, a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work, and in that I was tapping into my Navy days. I went the last 2 nights without sleep, and I was tapping into like, hey man, you remember when you were on the ship and you pull out 40-hour, 40-hour trips of work sprints. And so I tapped into that then. I tap into my Wall Street background very often because I am a kind of a hybrid when it comes to, a lot of folks, you have to be able to do multiple things, and even though I've gotten creative and I've learned to develop my creative expression through filmmaking, that was the latter part. I first came in through filmmaking, through the financial world and through the financing part of the business. So I tap back into the financing part all the time. I have to sell myself. I have to sell my company. I have to sell our capabilities. I have to sell my partners. And so that I tap into my Merrill Lynch days and my Morgan Stanley days for that, pretty often as well. So everything that you've done in your life has led you up to this point in the very present that you have to draw from and be sound with on all your previous experiences in order to make the best decisions in a bit to achieve the best outcomes for what you're doing in the current.
Have any of your films actually drawn from some of your experiences? Like, so the subject matter of the films drawn from the experiences you had in either your previous lines of work or just, or even your life experiences?
Man, everything that I touch it's I have to say that let me rewind back. People ask how am I here and how have I gotten to this point? It's truly by the grace of God and the Creator as well. And it seems like when I think about the answers to this question, it's like that's the first thing that pops up, and I'm like, hold on, let me pause and let me take it back, because in all honesty, that is the truth. It is God's grace and faith that continues to lead me to continue to persevere in my craft and what I'm developing and what I envision. So along with that, I noticed that I had to go back to God at that point, because when you ask the second question, I'm like, oh, that's God as well. Like I noticed that everything in my life is so interwoven. It got to the point where it wasn't even like scary. At first it was kind of scary, like, whoa, that's crazy. That can't be coincidence. And there's no way that, wait, how am I here? And I remember I envisioned this like 15 years ago. I remember I met this person. At first, it used to scare me, used to daunt me. Now it's just commonplace. Like I see it multiple times a day. You get signs, you see the synchronicity, and so for me, all my projects is a piece of me, is a piece of what I've been involved with. It's been a piece of what my family, what my community, what my cultures has seen or been involved with, and that's why my company is Chondrial. It's a play on being a real conduit, and I feel that my duty and what I've been appointed and responsible being is a conduit, and I've been a conduit all my life. So being a conduit from things in my childhood to what I'm doing now, or being a conduit of situations that I've seen or been through that I want to project in one of my projects, that runs through every single thing I touch. So that's, yeah, there's a lot of draw from, there's a lot of overlap. Everything that I'm dealing with has multiple layers. It has multiple backstories behind all of what you see on the surface, that it's just truly awesome. When I think of how you follow in your passion and you follow in what you feel in your spirit, and be at peace and be at whole with it, that you just draw and you continue to move, because even when it's not paying off financially, even if it's not paying off, even if there's frustrations and growing pains and you're learning and developing your craft, you start seeing the signs, you start seeing the overlap, you start seeing like, wow, pretty much like I saw this and I thought of this before, and now it's actually coming to fruition. So every project I have has a piece of me and has a piece of my spirit within it.
And so you mentioned passion, and sometimes things don't pay off financially. This is kind of a two-part question. What kind of obstacles as a filmmaker, as a Black filmmaker, do you face? And also, how do you find the inner strength to overcome those obstacles and to keep pushing?
Yeah, I have actually, a father participated in a documentary series. There's a few things that aren't on that. I should update that what do you call it? I don't even.
The bio.
Yeah, the bio. It's like,
Okay.
I'm working on so many things, I forget what it's called. There's a documentary series. That I'm working on, that we talk about just the obstacles, and we talk about some of just how the playing field is level, especially for Black filmmakers. You're starting to see a lot of attention brought to it, now. And you're starting to see a lot more attention brought to bringing funds and resources to Black filmmakers. But everything that I'm unapologetic with it. Black people know that everything we have to do our ice has to be colder. Our sugar got to be sweeter. I noticed that when I was at Merrill Lynch. I noticed that when I was at the Naval Academy. And so it's even more difficult, in the filmmaking. But it's not really a woe is me. It's really just, if anyone wants to think about it or really wants to hear the truth, I'm going to tell it to you. But what keeps you moving, it has to be something deeper. For me, I'm just a deep dude. That's just how I am, because it's like I'm so fascinated, I'm so moved, and I'm so inspired by what I have happening. And even if other people can't see it, even if my own family can't see it, it's like I know that it's all part of the process, and that even their contributions, and even how they uplift me, or even how they hold me down, when things aren't moving in the right way, that's part of their experience. That's part of their experience as well. So I just, it has to be, for me, like I have to have something tangible. Like I said, my spirit is interwoven in everything that I do. So that holds me up. Like, even if it's just still a far-fetched idea, or even if it's a work in progress, or even if I'm coming down the, like on my film about child organ trafficking, we're coming down the final steps. And even throughout that process, it's been a multi-year process. A lot of these projects have been multi-year processes. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier a little bit. Some of the obstacles is, Black filmmakers don't get the same level of funding. We don't get the same level of support. We're not looked at a lot of times as subject matter experts. We're not looked at. I've seen even in my Merrill Lynch days, I've seen white entrepreneurs and white filmmakers. I mean, they just get checked. I mean, with no previous experience, no, minimal viable product or nothing, just off of a whim. And it seems like everything we do, everything we get is a slice of a slice of a slice. I talked to your father about it through his many years in the advertising and marketing industries. It's like we get a segment of, we don't get the general market, we get a segment of the African American spend, which is like 1/10 the size of the general market, but
right.
African Americans influence maybe 70% of the buying decisions and cool factor of all products in America. So
yeah, most definitely.
So it's the same thing in film business. Like we could make or break a film as people, but it's like, if you look at every distributor, I've done paperwork, I've done analysis, on the movies that distribute per year, per annum. And you see, you got like 7 friggin' Batmans and X-Men's, and then you have like, one little black film that they, to get through the cracks. So
right.
you have a bunch of black filmmakers competing for that budget, So it's more difficult. But I think change is coming. I'm starting to see even more black investors being involved, because at the end of the day, you need those resources. You need the financial resources, and especially, now also see too, you need the academia and the knowledge resources as well. But when you first starting out, I think the biggest hurdle is the financial resources. Like now I'm at the point too right now where, hey, somebody, if a production company wants to lend me some editors or lend me some motion graphic designers or something like that, that's great, but when you're first starting out, to just see how to connect dots and to even be able to subsist and, and take care of yourself while you're trying to move in this endeavor, or move in this craft, it is much more difficult. But, we welcome the challenge because, as Black people, we've overcome everything that's been thrown at us.
Most definitely. Most definitely. So you touched on a couple of things that I definitely want to look at. And I kind of hear a bit of a connection from what you were just talking about as a challenge of, we are 70% of the influencers in the market, but we only get a slice of the pie at the end of the day. And so something I noticed, and it was interesting to talk about, was in the blackout game. A connection I see here conceptually, that is that in the blackout game, it talks about how the NBA started out all white. And then, the Boston Celtics were the first to draft a black player. And honestly, that was something I learned when I watched your documentary, watched the blackout game. I'm a hockey guy myself, so I'm more into that. However, I think there's something to say about the fact that even now, the NBA is pretty much black, and even though it started as a white sport, and so I guess
you got some European dudes, that don't. I know.
Yeah, exactly. But so, why do you think that is that we've been, the producers, but not necessarily reaping what we've produced? What do you think that is in the real world, and also not the basketball's not the real world, but in the general filmmaking space, as well as in the documentary you talk about in the basketball world as well?
Okay, man. Like I said, I've been unapologetically honest with everything. It's because the world has been built that way. The world has truly been built that way. If you look at any point on planet Earth, from Australia to Europe to South America to Hawaii to the Pacific Islands, in India, in China, anywhere, like, people of color have been held down, have been systematically abused, and been leached from, so it's been set up that way. We're seeing it here in the United States as well. Like I'm an economics major, and I remember even just some of at the Naval Academy, I remember even just some of the most basic things I would ask questions about, and my economics teacher couldn't really answer it. I remember I was at Wall Street, I'm like, if you look at unbridled capitalistic greed, it has to feed upon something, and that's why they put ideas and they put That's why the whole, when you look at media, when you look at advertising, when you look at the impression of Black lives and Black people, it's always been an inferiority thing, because if we are true understanding and true acknowledgement of that power, then it's going to shift the tables. And there are people throughout the different paradigms, throughout the different industries that continue to leech and parasite, off of our energy, off of our gifts, off of our talents. We're starting to see a little bit of a reversal now, but really because it's in place where the rich have to get rich off of somebody. They have to get rich off of consumers. They have to get rich off of those that feel that they can't provide the same level of product or service. And a lot of that is a mental game. A lot of that isn't necessarily factual. A lot of that is mental outlook, just like Black Lives Matter. It's saying that, hey, Black people's lives matter, because subconsciously for a lot of people, then it's not valued the same. So that same mantra, it holds on all things, even economic, even religion. It moves across, all paradigms of life. It's not just police violence. It's like,
right.
We're
Absolutely.
gonna get these folks short where they can sing and dance, and we can throw them in front of commercials and give them a few checks, but it's not empowerment. It's just, it's little carrots that they dangle in front of a lot of our faces that, sadly enough too, a lot of us just take it because a lot of us have come from, humbled environments. I came from a humbled environment. I came from, I didn't come from means. I'm the first person in my family line to graduate high school. So a lot of this education we didn't have. A lot of this, I was a financial advisor. I didn't have a financial advisor around me. We had debt collectors. My brother, my sister were trying to avoid. It wasn't. We don't have that same level of experience, within these things. So it's easy to fall victim. I mean, it's easy to get preyed upon. It's very easy to get preyed upon. And as a collective group, when we're just not collective and not building and not in the wherewithal of looking at a generational wealth or looking downstream, a lot of us sell out, or quote unquote sell out. But it's almost to the actual factual, meaning of the term. Like, we sell, easy. We sell cheap.
Yeah.
Oh
definitely.
yeah, you'll give us, a brand new car and a couple of chains, and yeah, sure, I'll do everything, when they're generating the wealth behind it. And I marvel at it, and I'm not saying it with any bitterness, because it's like, hey, it's a dog eat dog world, and that's the system we've been built in. But then there's a faith, that comes with it, that the phoenix shall rise from the ashes. And I believe that, for me, I don't look at myself, like I said, I'm a conduit in the purest form. I've made personal sacrifices and continue to make personal sacrifices that I don't have to make. Like, if I was just caring about myself, I mean, I can get a job anywhere. I've declined jobs making, a few $100,000 a year, even though I haven't been in the job market in 12 years. I haven't even done a resume. I haven't even made a resume in 12 years. But because I believe in something deeper, I believe in something much bigger, that's much bigger than me. And I think too, as a people, that we have to understand, because I've been around a lot of successful people, and I look at other groups of people, they don't look at just themselves. They look deeper down the road. I understand too, as Black people, we have to understand that there might be seeds that we plant, that you can't be selfish, that the seeds that you plant, you might not be alive to even see blossom. You might not even be alive to bear the fruit of.
Fair, yeah, definitely.
But I have the faith that my energy and my soul is contributing to something that I'll feel it when I need to feel it. So I think, for us, that's very imperative, because or we'll just continue to get taken advantage of. And if we don't hold on and look at and get more influence behind, like, hey, don't think deeper, think bigger, like Jay-Z, he's talking a lot about, we have a lot of, LeBron talks a lot about it and they show it, I think that's starting to turn the ship around, but we've been the prey for such a long period of time
Yeah.
that it's easy. It's like, yeah, we just throw anything to them and, they'll support it and they'll buy it and they'll make us billions of dollars and they won't have anything to show for it. I mean, how many brands have we made billions of dollars for, from Timberland to Tommy Hilfiger to, all these things
Nike,
Nike and all these things that we shout and we die over. I mean, you got kids killing themselves over.
Yeah.
And we have nothing to show for it. Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, no, you're right. I mean, even though Michael Jordan is a billion, apparently a billionaire, the reality is the amount of money that he's actually made for Nike far surpasses his current net worth.
Oh, for certain.
So his billionaire status is just a drop in a bucket.
Oh, for certain.
And the question that came from the audience in looking at, the fact that Black folks tend to be the content creators and the trendsetters, can we leverage our power, and how do we leverage it if we can?
We could definitely leverage it. Every decision that we make is an opportunity to leverage our power. Every decision that we make in this financial world is an opportunity to leverage our power, from what we buy to what we accept and more importantly, what we don't accept. And that requires a strong amount of gumption, that requires a strong amount of faith, and that requires an intense passion in knowing that what you achieve and what you want to achieve and manifest, even if the path isn't lit and isn't illuminated at the time. Because there are opportunities that I've passed down. There's opportunities that I've declined. Yay, because it's something that my soul and my doesn't sit right with me, or it's not something that's uplifting for my community and for my culture. That no, I refuse to refuse to just think for my instant gratification, and to stroke that ego, to do things of that nature. And I think that these influencers, if we band together, or if we start understanding and thinking deeper term and stop fighting one another and forget all these little qualms and beefs and all this, it's just not, and like swag and all this stuff, it's just nonsense. I mean, really, like it's just nonsense. Like, for us to really get empowered, we have to definitely, look at and evaluate everything that we're doing, and how we're doing it, and how does it benefit beyond you? How does it benefit beyond me?
Right.
And, how does it create empowerment beyond you, beyond me? Because, you might give someone a check and, and I know at Merrill Lynch and in Wall Street, they used to teach us about, the trickle down effect, or, it's the tide that raises all boats and everything. But, that's rarely effective. I had a conversation with Lisa Price, the founder of Carol's Daughter. And, we talked about that as well. And, it's decisions that even if we do, monopolize them or sell our companies or what have you, every decision that we make, like, are we going to support a Black-owned business? Somebody just asked me for two referrals for a service provider, for entertainment attorney. And I referred, I was like, here's an opportunity. Every decision is an opportunity. I referred two black women, now those, I don't know where that may go, but I know that for me, it's a pendulum effect. Like if everything that we push, if it just pushes the pendulum a little more forward, you just don't know where that might break. You just don't know what down the line, how that might break. Your father's contracted me, American Legacy's contracted me on a lot of things that he doesn't even know. And I told him this one time over breakfast, like, where I might have been on my last, on my last tank of gas, and he's like, hey, Jeff, I got this little thing that I go, yeah. He could have went to any company, Manhattan or anywhere else. He could have went to, some of the folks that aren't of our community, of our culture, but he just doesn't know where, like, you just don't know, but it's about putting that in your consciousness, putting that in your decision-making, because you don't know. And that's why I say we're too selfish. Like, we have to be selfless. I don't care. I don't know if I see the fruits of some of these seeds that I'm planting, but they're going to be built because someone else behind me is going to pick up my torch as well. Right. But even in the interim, even in the day-to-day, like, I just, I continually put in my fabric, into my consciousness that, all these decisions, this is an opportunity. This
Mm-hmm.
referral can open up a door for this person, or could create a long-standing relationship, or this person might be, a month back on rent for
Mm,
their office, and this might keep them alive and keep their business open. You just
absolutely.
don't know, but
You
we
never
have
know.
to have that. We have to have that more in our
Mm-hmm.
minds now than ever. And we have to have it more in our minds where it's almost like, yeah, you have to think about it. And, like you have to think about it damn near in every decision. And I know that could be burdensome because people just want to be like, oh, and there's a lot of times I'm like, Jeff, like, why does every single decision have to be so heavy for you? But, it doesn't have to be that heavy. I don't want to scare nobody away, but for me, I take it that seriously. So
Yeah,
if people just took it 10% more seriously, imagine how much further we could be. If people took
absolutely.
it 20% more seriously, imagine how much further we could be.
Absolutely. I mean, the energy that you intentionally put into the world makes a huge difference.
Oh, for
Um,
certain.
and so you also mentioned about, projects that you've worked on. You mentioned something with my dad. We're going to shift gears real quick, and I'm actually going to show a little bit of a clip for a couple minutes from the Blackout game on American Legacy
Oh, okay.
Network. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Blackout game, and then we're going to get into your creative process a little bit. And then we're going to have a little lightning round, fun set of questions to close out. So right now, I'm going to share the Blackout game. So a little bit of that.
Hmm.
No, pick up.
Your time is up, my time is now. You can't see me, my time is now. It's the franchise where I'm shining now.
Camry. Toyota. Let's go places.
I think basketball in New York City, is synonymous.
Black culture in basketball was a powerful thing in New York.
I was fortunate enough to live not far from Rucker Park. So some of those images that many people see, people climbing in the trees, being on the roofs, being on the fence, that was me. That was my summer.
People here in Harlem, they really know good basketball.
To me, they just presented an opportunity that there is life outside of the neighborhood.
And I think if you really look at the history of the game, I do think, it's New York City, Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball. I think that's because the game really grew and was born out of New York City. That's where its roots were really established.
You used basketball to where it took you off the street, so to speak, and put you in college, and you was able to get a degree or a skill to where you can make money, even if you're not in the NBA. It saved lives.
So to actually see people on television that you can touch and feel in your neighborhood playing a sport that is pretty commonplace.
Basketball has been a blessing in the black community, although it was invented by a white man, Dr. James Naismith, that's from Canada. It's amazing that black men and women have been able to do so much with it. God bless Mr. Naismith, and God bless basketball.
Let's use this moment as a call to action for all professional athletes to educate ourselves, explore these issues, speak up, use our influence, and renounce all violence.
What I think is wonderful about today's play, there's a social consciousness and a recognition and an acknowledgement. They understand that there was a path that they followed, and they know that that's all a result of the men who have come before them.
The Harlem Wrens, great John Isaac. So I was fortunate enough, again, being around John and listening to him talk about the history, talk about the journey that him and his teammates went through. Racism was very, very prominent in the United States traveling on buses, going from city to city where you're not welcome, you can't get a hot meal, you have to do different things just to take care of your basic needs, and then go out there and bust somebody's behind. And then that was the satisfaction, because they knew they would win. They come back, how you like me now, as they rode out of town. I remember John saying we would go anywhere to play anybody, because that's how confident we were in our abilities to play this sport.
It's awe-inspiring. I mean, I think they won 2,381 games and lost, I think, 381. I mean, their success on the court, obviously is unmatched. They were beating white teams so badly that, again, whites didn't want to see, just like with the Negro Leagues and Barnstorming in baseball, they didn't want to see their heroes getting beat because there was still a sense of superiority. John Wooden, the great John Wooden, who he praised on the Wrens, saying that this is how the game should be played. Think of today's Golden State Warriors, a team that aesthetically is just a beautiful team. Basketball, movement, passing. The Wrens, established that.
We've always had this imprint in the game around expressing and demonstrating our craft in a way that was entertaining. And I just find it ironic when you look back then to now, the way halftime shows are performing, and you see you get entertainment, you get the musicians and the rappers.
Bob Douglas really is the vanguard, because the Renaissance Ballroom, he said, hey, we'll give you publicity by bringing a basketball team in by playing games. So they had basketball games and dances in the ballroom. And so, he melded, marketing and advertising and entertainment and was the first to do that. So what we see today in the NBA, Bob Douglas did that in the 20s.
All right, so everyone, we saw a quick clip of the blackout game. So Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about what led to the production of the blackout game? We're going to wait just a second for Jeff to come back on. All right. Hey, Jeff.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right, cool. So can you tell us a little bit about what led to the production of the blackout game and what inspired the story? While Jeff is getting back connected with us here, just want to plug American Legacy Network .tv. And so I do highly encourage everyone who's watching to subscribe to American Legacy Network .tv. You can join today. You can go and visit. That's actually what we were using to screen a bit of the blackout game. And so again, everyone, please go to American Legacy Network .tv today. Do it right now. Do it in 5 minutes. But yeah, if you go on there, it's $3.99 a month. You get a lot of wonderful Black content, including some of what you just saw. And so again, we're very excited to be celebrating 25 years of the American Legacy brand. And a huge part of that, of course, is a huge part of that celebration is all the content that we have on American Legacy Network .tv. So again, please join American Legacy Network .tv, and we do look forward to having you all as subscribers. Again, before we continue into this, the rest of this interview, if you do have questions that you would like answered, please feel free to type them in the comment section of the video that's being aired right now. And so, yeah, again, we're still working through a couple technical things, trying to make sure we get Jeff on here. Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, I don't know why it keeps resetting. Hello.
You know what? I think that, you know, the debates tonight and I think that somebody's messing with the internet. So that does happen sometimes. But can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Are you still there, Jeff?
Yeah, it'll connect for like 2 minutes, and then it'll all of a sudden.
That's strange. We're gonna have to make a call to Zoom. All right, everyone, we're waiting. We're gonna take a moment to hopefully get Jeff back on here. He's having some connectivity issues. But we are very happy to have Jeff. Tomorrow evening will be the final Meet the Producers series installment. We'll be interviewing Dante James. And so we do encourage you to tune in tomorrow evening as we have a conversation with Dante James. And I'm definitely looking forward to getting Jeff back on here because, you know, he's got a lot of wonderful you know, things to say about his career, about his filmmaking experience, and he's just a wealth of information and inspiration. And so hopefully in the next moment or so we can bring Jeff back on. All right, Jeff's coming back in.
All right, I went and reset my whole phone, so let's see.
Okay. Hopefully it keeps you connected. All right, so welcome back, Jeff. I'm so glad to have you back. So we just screened about half of the Blackout game on American Legacy Network. And the question I want to know is what inspired the Blackout game and how did you come to produce that?
I can't tell if I'm being heard. You there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a proud son of Mount Vernon, New York, and Mount Vernon has an esteemed and rich basketball history that is something that's part of another project that I'm a part of with my partner Gerald Hoover and Ben Gordon. But when I started looking at, there's so many stories in Black history and Black culture that can be so big, and then there's so many sub stories in between it. And I always marveled, at just seeing a sport that Black people, just within 50 years have come to dominate, over 50, 60 years have come to dominate and just be so prolific at. And but there's more to it, and that's why I wanted to tell the story with Bob Douglas and the Harlem Reds. There are so many innovations that came about, not just through the sport of basketball, but just through Black culture and Black people's imprint that has affected sports worldwide. We're talking about from pregame shows to halftime shows. We're talking about how the entertainment, how the culture is mixed in. We're talking about just, how the marketing of the game has been influenced just from the things that, the Harlem Wrens and a lot of those teams had to persevere and pioneer, just so they can have an opportunity. And so I marveled at that. So, when the American Legacy came at the opportunity for me to convey that and have an idea of something I wanted to tell a story in, and something I could tell it pretty succinctly, I said, that's one, because there's a great fusion between Black culture, Black history, basketball, and the imprint that fusion has made on the game and in sports and in entertainment moving forward, that we are seeing and we continue to reap the benefits from to this day.
And so, as a producer filmmaker, there's clearly succinct is a great word to describe it, because it's just about 8 minutes long. I think another word I would use to describe it is thorough. And so it's amazing to be so thorough in such in a relatively short time frame. But my question is, how did you? What was the process of you gaining all the historical information that you infused into the short documentary?
There's yeah, it just made me think. Trying to find a way to be succinct about this, because even just that question has such a deeper meaning for me. I was partners with the late great Chad Boseman. When I first started in the film business, and the film company, the name that he put on it was called Son of the Griots. And I remember I asked him, I was like, "What is a griot?" And and in the ancient, and in the African culture, it's a storyteller. They were well respected with that. I remember he explained this whole thing to me. This is back in 2007, and Chad just came from Chicago, and he came up from DC. But I remember I asked him, "What's a griot?" And he was like, "A storyteller." And he was like, just telling me about how in the village and in the tribes, they were the most respected of the elders, because they passed the knowledge, they passed this through story. And a lot of African culture and tradition, even I just had this conversation a couple of days ago, didn't even have an alphabet, didn't have dictionaries, up until more recently, and most of the stories were told through storytelling, through verbal passage. And so all that to say is a lot of my initial knowledge and research came through verbal passage, came through stories. Bobby Childs was featured on there. We talked a lot, just in general. And I have a very good memory. So, I just retained a lot of that information. Gerald Hoover, who's on there, that dude's a basketball encyclopedia. Jamie, all the guys I featured, these are guys I've had conversations with that are telling me story after story, and then I'll just retain it and I'll just start connecting the dots. And then, then you go and do your background homework. Obviously the internet is such a great tool. I keep emphasizing onto the young folks. It's scary to say that. I would say, 90% of the stuff I learn on YouTube. I learned on the internet. I learned on Skillshare. And you can learn just so much. Obviously, there's a lot of background information, a lot of the information about the Wrens, a lot of the pictures, a lot of the archival story, behind that was something I used for the internet, but for storytelling, just from different people, just from my mentors, just from folks telling me about some of these accomplishments and stories, just verbally, really was the foundation. After that, I started organizing some of the more tangible elements, but just hearing these stories over years was really the foundation. Even my dad used to tell me some of the stories when we used to drive around Harlem. So, just that was the beginning. Yeah.
And, what I thought was very interesting, and I just had this moment now actually, was the thought that, or the idea that what you're doing is something that people in the past had to have done to help inform what you're doing. So for instance, there were pictures and information and passed on information, pictures of the basketball players from, some of those pictures look like they were about 100 years old. Right. And can you speak about the importance of filmmaking and documenting what we're doing now so that the future generations can can know what we did?
Yeah, I've always believed. I always believed there was a crime, and it's an evil that has been penetrated, into people's mental psyche, especially Black people. That history is not important. I mean, that's so much ego, and that's so much. That's just so out of tune to not think that that foundation and the history and what comes with that, the belief in yourself, the belief or seeing that someone else has persevered or achieved, and having the satisfaction of hearing it. I think it's two satisfactions: there's a satisfaction in hearing it, and then there's a satisfaction in being able to share it and orate it. And it's been a disservice to us to think that to not respect our elders, to not respect the knowledge and the wisdom that they impart on us, even in small stories. Hollow Grounds is a project that it's part of a bigger project that has all the bells and whistles and all the the eye-catching things and the name dropping and the ESPN, and we got 9 Hall of Famers, and we got a bunch of influencers and different people, actors, some of the greatest of all time, that want to be a part of it. But then I also made sure that I'm telling this Hollow Ground stories about those that didn't get that level of recognition from the community, because it's their stories that really penetrate, and move culture forward, and move people and inspiration forward. That's why a lot of our kids are in such a treacherous place right now, mentally, because if you don't feel like you have something to wake up to, if you don't feel like there's something, like me, I'm not risking like the stuff I'm doing for some nonsense. Like, no way. I've been like that since I was a kid. My parents, my mom, my dad instilled that in me. But I can see how kids fall through the cracks because they don't have nothing that they inspire to, and a lot of that is because those stories and that history from what happened before isn't impressed upon them, that we can overachieve, we can overcome. There are people in worse positions than you that have done greater things, but we don't see that. And for me, that's been like what James Baldwin said. African Americans don't have any of the history of Africa, and don't have the privilege of being American. And even Marcus Garvey said that to not know your history is like a tree growing without roots,
Right.
That effect, so I truly believe that. And a lot of that comes from the stories, that comes from the storytelling. I remember Malcolm X was the first movie. I mean Denzel is, there aren't many people that I don't have idols, anything of that nature, but the people that I truly respect, that I want to mimic and pattern of some of my life off of is someone like Denzel. And I remember seeing Glory, and I remember, and I just watched Glory again the other night. I remember seeing Malcolm X. So I was going into Malcolm X, but that was the first time, I came out of that doggone theater thinking I was Malcolm X. Like, I came out with the energy, with the gusto, with
I am Malcolm X.
I remember, and that Ozzie Davis, rest in peace. I have a picture of Ozzie Davis and Denzel here. That Ozzie Davis, that eulogy, that was the eulogy that he had stated, and that monologue at the end, that was the first time I remember when I came out the theater, I forgot where I was. And I was like, wow, there is power in this story. Like, that was the first time I felt the power of cinema. Because I thought I was still in 1965 at the Audubon. Like, I totally forgot where I was. I remember I came out that theater, I was 12 or 13. I was crying, I had tears. And I forgot where I was. And I was like, holy cow, Spike Lee could do this, with Denzel and a bunch of actors, like, make me forget where I am, like, because I'm like living this story. That's when I truly first acknowledged the power of cinema. Like, that's when I was like, wow, this is, like, I've watched, plenty of movies before, but that was the first time I'm like, man, this is something here. So for me to be involved in it, and now to be involved in a way that I can influence, whether it be from 8 minutes to 80 minutes to 800 minutes, or through a lifetime, of whatever I want to do or continue to, pursue in my endeavors in this craft. For me is very important. And that's why I say there's nothing that I touch that doesn't have my spirit, that doesn't have, that doesn't have what I've been appointed to do, marked on it. So for me, it's extremely important that we know our history. It's extremely important that we continue to pay it forward, small ways and big ways. If you can't make a movie, then just tell people about somebody that was great in your community. My mentor, my Baba Billy Thomas, every time. There's so many people that no one even knows that I already have in my mind that, when this film gets released, I'm going to thank. When this film gets released, I'm going to thank, and people that were just from the community, people that influenced and changed people's lives that may not have, gotten the great, response. But I think we need that on all levels, from within the community, from within your family. Did you know your uncle was this? Did you know your great grandfather was this? All the way to the big cinema. I think as people, we need to continue to pay that, because that keeps our connectivity, that keeps our collective energy and our collective consciousness alive. And knowing that, that's why I feel full confident, like, hey, we're going to overcome anything that's thrown at us.
Absolutely.
So, that's why, but it comes from knowing the history, it comes from, and when you understand the history, especially like the Blackout game with Bob and how some of these guys got taken advantage of, then it makes you realize too, like, hey, I'm hipper and I'm wiser, to whatever I'm doing, because there's so many correlations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's interesting that, like, you talk about connectivity and connection to community, and I think it's really special that you talked about Denzel Washington and Malcolm X, and how that influenced you as a 12-year-old leaving the theater crying. Special shout out to Denzel Washington, of course, because he is from Mount Vernon, New York. And I know that he studied at the Open Cage Theater, which is in the part of Mount Vernon that's almost, bordering the Bronx.
Another untold story, Tina Satin.
Yep. Tina Satin
lived in Mount Vernon. She didn't get all the claim. I have her picture up here. Like, she didn't get all the claim. Those are the things that's what holds people together. Even me, like, sure, like, I have aspirations. I met Denzel and, I want to do projects and all this type of stuff. But it's the Tina Satins of the world, those people that I'm like, you know what, like, she's the one that taught him, and I see those pictures. I saw a picture of her and his mother and him when he was like 15 or something. And I'm like,
wow.
So shout out to Tina Satin, rest in peace.
Yes.
A lot of people. She was a tremendous, marvelous woman that dedicated so much to the community in Mount Vernon. And she was a dynamo within Broadway, and one of the first much well-respected Black Broadway musical and theater performers, in African American history.
Yes, I'm from Mount Vernon as well. I grew up there, and so I definitely had the opportunity to meet Tina Satin before she passed, and she was definitely a dynamic woman. And sometimes you would think automatically someone who's influenced someone as big as Denzel would have a much bigger head about them. But what I thought was really dynamic about her was her humility, and the fact that she still, I was coming up probably 20 some odd years after Denzel, and she still had the time and energy to engage young people in Mount Vernon and to empower and influence us. So a huge shout out to Tina Satin. So we're coming close to the close of our time. So I want to get in just one or two more questions. These are kind of rapid fire questions.
Sure.
And I'm going to relate it a little bit back to Mount Vernon, because for those of you who don't know about Mount Vernon is the birth of a lot of creativity. And so the first rapid fire question I'm going to ask you, who are your top, I'll make it easy, top two artists from Mount Vernon?
Oh, so two artists. I definitely, Heavy D and Pete Rock and CL Smooth for certain.
All right, cool.
Pete Rock, actually Pete Rock and CL Smooth, but Pete Rock, even he's still in the game, and he's still, I think, one of the tops in the game, and he still continues to influence me to this day.
All right, next question. Who are your top five actors or producers that you'd like to work with who you haven't had a chance to work with yet?
Shoot, there's a bigger vision that I want to have with Denzel Washington. that I'm going to get to. So Denzel's at the top of that list. I definitely want to work with James Lasseter. He's Will Smith's production partner. That was someone that I looked up to when I was at Merrill Lynch. Charles King, he's someone that I tremendously admire. A lot of my folks, man, are like, you got to know the industry. Like, a lot of my folks aren't the surface level folks. A lot of my folks are like the guys that I see. Charles King, with Macro Entertainment. I met him, I had a great conversation with him. I actually remember I met him at and he remembered the conversation we had back, when he was just an agent at CAA. So Charles King, he's doing great things. His company Macro, they produce Fences. They produce a lot of great films that are coming out now. Let me think who else. Will Packer, and probably I think Queen Latifah. She's someone that I always admired, and her production company. I don't know if she's still with Shaquem, but they were folks that I always admired too.
Okay, awesome. Last question. It's two questions, but it's one question. What's up next for you, and how can folks in the audience get in touch with you or get in contact with your work?
Yeah, what's next is I have my feature film called Rest of X. On the bio, it was at that time it was project name Isolated Victim. That's coming out. Well, we're in post production, so actually, I have to go through this distribution negotiation, so I can't exactly say when that's coming out. But we have a show. I have a kind of more of a lighthearted thing, a dating show, but I really wanted to put Black women on the pedestal, called Courtship. And I have a partnership with Maxim that we air that comes on every Thursday night at 9 p.m. We have 6 more episodes left in the season, and we feature a lot of social media influencers. We give 3 of their followers an opportunity to win an online date, but it's that old school chivalry and charm where guys are just going and they're trying to impress and woo and court this woman in 60 seconds live stream, and that's on. That Instagram is Courtship Show, and Courtship is spelled with a Q-U-A-R, like from the quarantine. So it's like Q-U-A-R-T-S-H-I-P, Courtship. It's at Courtship Show. But people want to see me, I'm at Jeff A. Watkins, Jeffawatkins on Instagram. I've never been very good at something I'm definitely developing better right now is in the self-promotion. Like, I am so entrenched, into, my film. I have Hollow Grounds. It's a documentary series I'm finishing up. I have a virtual production for the kids in Mount Vernon. I'm doing like an America's Got Talent type of talent show for them. Like, there's so many things that, I think they're all gonna be coming. Hollow Grounds will be finished up. Black Box, which is a documentary series that your father is featured in as well, just about the Black experience in entrepreneurship, different industries. That's being finished up this year. So a lot of that's being finished up, but I'll definitely pull that stuff up on my personal Instagram page. I haven't done a good job at I've never been like, oh, look at me or look at this, and that's something I have to break out of my comfort zone with, because people enjoy and people want to see and hear some of the, I guess what's the point of doing this if I'm not going to tell people about it. So I'm glad that you're asking, because it's something that I definitely have to break out of. The Jeff A. Watkins on Instagram, Jeff Watkins, on my Facebook, and you can email me, jeff@condreal.com. That's CONDREAL.com, CONDREAL.com, and like I've always, it's part of my mission to pay it forward. It's part of my mission to, help and elevate people, whenever I've always answered anyone that's always, ever had some type of question.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you again for sitting with me for the past hour and change. Talk about you, talk about your productions, and talk about your work. And so again, thank you so much from American Legacy Network. And we really definitely look forward to what you have in the future, and are very appreciative that you have your talent is being displayed on our network. So thank you again.
Listen, I mean, always appreciate American Legacy. I always appreciate Mr. Reynolds, Dr. Lilly, and, what they've established and what they've sacrificed for so long through thick and thin. It's given a platform for myself, for a lot of other folks, that have content, on the platform, and even the revival of some of the content from our ancestors that we might not have known about that is being revived, on films, on the platform. So, there's always tons of respect, tons of just admiration there. And, I continue to be at service.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Join me tomorrow evening as I'll be interviewing Mr. Dante James to conclude the Meet the Producer series. So thanks again, Jeff. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.